So can you tell me your full name and then spell your last name for me?
William R. Cousins, Cousins.
And what can you tell me? Tell me one really good story of OCS.
Well, first, transportation
And look at me.
Transportation Officers Canada School was a very profound experience. It was difficult. There was a very high attrition rate. We were challenged and under stress to perform continually. We were taught to pay attention to every little detail, no matter how small, and to react very quickly to any unexpected situation, and there were lots of them. But that is exactly the training that Army officers needed to go into leadership positions and lead troops in Vietnam. We were being trained to go to Vietnam. All of us were. Almost all of us did go to Vietnam. I myself served 2 tours in Vietnam, 2 years in Vietnam, 2 years apart. But the training I got there prepared me for what I was needed to do when I got to Vietnam. And of course, I stayed in and made it a career of almost 27 years and enjoyed most minutes of it, except those in OCS probably.
Right. So what, did you ever get any demerits or have to run? Or?
Well, we were under continual scrutiny, and the punishment for any infraction for even we had FFI, was failure to follow instructions, was the generic cause for awarding demerits, and we could get them for almost nothing. For smiling, for eyeballing, for being late, for being early, for being this or that, a smudge on your belt buckle or a smudge on your boot. And the way we worked off, if you got enough demerits, you ran a tour on Saturday, which was in full battle rattle with M14 rifle at Port Arms, and we would run around Fort Eustis. It was in the summertime. I went from April till September, and we had an ambulance behind us in the hot weather to pick up the heat injury victims. And we had some of those who fell out of the runs because they were heat exhausted. But if you had enough demerits, you also got to repeat that on Sunday morning. The tours were on Saturday, and then then you'd start over on Sunday night with 0 demerits, and you'd start all over again and build up for the next weekend. I had a funny experience. Every week on Sunday we had formation, and we installed a new candidate chain of command. We had a company commander, an XO, first sergeant, platoon leaders, platoon sergeants, and I had some minor roles, lower things. It didn't cause any extraordinary scrutiny from the TAC officers, so I didn't get a ton of demerits, but I got a few. And so one Sunday, the chain of command was installed. I didn't have any duty for that coming week. I said, I can skate, I'll be under the radar, I don't have any special scrutiny or anything to give me make me subject to more demerits or push-ups, which were very common too. We did many hundreds per day. We were in formation after lunch to march back to the classroom, and I heard the captain, the cadre company commander, Shelton Woods, behind me say, "Candidate Cousins," in his Georgia drawl. And I said, "Sir, Candidate Cousins?" "Yes, sir." And he says, "Report." So I ran around. I said, in my mind, I was saying, I'm being kicked out. He's never called anyone else. The TAC officers were with us all the time. We never saw the company commander. He never interacted with us or did anything. So I'm thinking, this is really important. I'm leaving today. I'm going to go to Vietnam as a PFC infantryman. That's what I was trained to be. And I'm going to leave today. Well, he says, "Follow me." Now the formation's marching off over to the classroom, and I'm there with the company commander. And he said, "Follow me." We went in the day room, and he says, "What do you see, candidate?" And I said, "Well, sir, there's a fuzzball under that chair over there, and there's a couple of magazines on the coffee table that aren't straight, and maybe the blinds are, one of them is 1/8 of an inch higher than the rest of them, And so he said, "Very good, candidate." So we walk over to the barracks, and the same thing. He asked me, "What do you see?" And there were a few demerits, a few infractions. Things weren't perfect. So we go over to the classroom, And he makes a speech about training a mule using a carrot for reward and a stick for discipline, the carrot and the stick thing. And he talks about that for about 10 minutes, and then he says, I want this chain of command to stand up. You're all relieved. You don't have any duties anymore. Here's your new company commander. And he said, now I said, now I know I'm being set up to be kicked out. So he said, okay, pick your staff. So I picked my XO and my first sergeant and platoon leaders, and I said, you guys pick your platoon sergeants and squad leaders and stuff underneath that. And I made it through my week as company commander. I can't remember how many extra push-ups I had to do, but anything you did, you were always in the spotlight because you're out in front leading the company. If you forget to post road guards in time, or you say column left instead of column right, or whatever, you don't, it's drop, push-ups. Anyway, that's my gist of my experiences in OCS.
That's a great story. Did he ever tell you why?
No, I still don't know why. No, he didn't.
I wonder if the other classes had that happen.
I don't know, but we got, he left about our probably 18th week. Captain Wood went back to Vietnam. He was an infantry officer. He'd already been to Vietnam in the first cav, and he was going back. And we got a new company commander, a guy named Bernie Roberson. He was a first lieutenant, and he was in one of the earlier classes. He was a first lieutenant by this time. He came in and reduced us from the first day from senior candidates to basic candidates, which was a big blow because, as a senior, you can walk, you don't have to run everywhere. Basic and intermediate candidates have to salute you and call you sir. And you have some power. You're not like a TAC officer, but you have some power. And we got all that taken away from us. And we had to request in writing for every privilege to be reinstated. We had to list them all and put a justification for every one of them to be reinstated. It was tough. They never let up, never. It was tough right until the last day. I mean, you never knew whether you were going to make it or not. There was a lot of stress.
What did you end up doing in Vietnam? Were you?
Well, the first time I went over, I was in the 507th Trans Group, and I kind of moved all over the country. I ran an airfield operation up in, I can't even remember where. One in Quy Nhon and one in Song Bay, not Song Bay, anyway, somewhere, Phuket. And then I was up, but I traveled all over the country. I was on kind of their IG team too, and I went all the way up to the DMZ and all the way down on both sides, Pleiku and Cam Ranh Bay, and all over the whole country. I went back that was in 68 to 69. I went back in September 71. I was a truck company commander at Long Binh, running convoys all over the Delta. And that was interesting because all the U.S. combat forces, all the infantry divisions and infantry brigades had left. Just a bunch of loggies and the Vietnamese army and the Viet Cong. That was all that was left, just us. And I had 8 gun trucks. We saw that wasn't mine, the Even Destruction. It's a different company. But I had 8 gun trucks in my company, and we did convoy escorts with those. And always had a helicopter or a bird dog aircraft flying above us with an officer from our battalion on the radio with us, and they'd fly ahead and tell us if there's any bad guys on the side of the road setting up an ambush. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what I did. And anyway, I stayed in until 1993, so almost 27 years.
What did you retire as?
I retired as a full colonel.
Okay.
I was surprised every time I got promoted. I was surprised to make major, and then anyway, it fell into place, and I was. I had some great jobs. I met a lot of good friends, and I wouldn't trade the experience for the world.
I agree.